VidCon USA, the annual conference for social media enthusiasts and creators alike, is in full swing. Thousands of people flock the Anaheim Convention Center for what is a good weekend of enjoyment and social media education under the warm Californian heat. The event over the last decade has been a staple for many YouTube creators and fans to attend. It has been the dominant platform represented at the conference for all of those years. However, this year, it was different, as there was another demographic present, and they came in their masses. Former Atlantic reporter Taylor Lorenz says the largest group of people present at the event were young TikTok and Instagram influencers, along with their young fanbase. Over the last 2 or so years, there's been an observable rise of these young social media stars, notably through viral apps like Musical.ly, where we have seen less than desirable teen stars rise to a level of internet fame. It's these young people who are the focus in this video, and we're going to explore certain issues beyond their problematic ways that affect real people and has real-world consequences. These stars, most of them still in school, have such a large platform at their disposal with a greater number of willing fans, as well as fans who dedicate their time to creating content for that person. There are a plethora of stan accounts on Instagram dedicated to these young influencers. They create fan edits, appreciation posts, and document the achievements and lives of these young people. And it seems to be a community which is lacking in community. Through my investigation of this group, I've primarily stayed on Instagram for my observations, as Instagram is arguably the leading platform for these young influencers. It's where all of their numbers are the greatest, and of course where they are the most active. But even more, it's also where a lot of the issues with these people occur and where the eventual drama unfolds. It's been new these influencers are very, very problematic. You don't have to know much about what they do to understand the problems with some of the things that go on. For example, you have this fine specimen ranting to their young audience.
Yeah, you wanna hear something funny though? The doctors that you're allowing to do those full abortions have the choice because they're males. How does that make you feel? You're literally allowing these males to kill your baby. But that's okay? Okay, got him.
Definitely not the most appropriate demographic to convey your political ideologies to.
You're right, it's not abortion, it's called murder.
Or you of course have the popular topic of Danielle Cohn, who is arguably being exploited by her mother and certain brands, yet that is consistently overlooked, but that's a whole other topic. However, it's not this behaviour which is of concern for this video. We will be exploring deeper into the influence these people have, and further, the effects it has on something very important within this community and in every online community. For that, I would like to make it very clear this is not a call-out video. It is a discussion with the goal of educating people about some of the things they may have noticed or felt, but never really understood. So first of all, let's have a look at the theory. Social media is a relatively new technology, and it's proven to revolutionize the way in which we communicate and interact with each other. It's been rather magnificent in the way it completely changed the dynamic of the world. However, it's only recently we've started shifting our everyday lives online, meaning we still don't know a lot about what effects it has on us. There have been studies, many recent, that investigate what effects on the user social media has, and more importantly, on young teens and adults. A common consensus from these studies concludes there is no clear-cut evidence showcasing that social media itself is the key factor with the mental health problems of its users. In a study published in August by the University College London, it was found that there was no evidence as to how social media itself is the cause of mental health problems within young people between the ages of 13 to 16. The study concludes the main areas likely to harm the mental health of the people who use social media is from factors such as cyberbullying, sleep deprivation, and a lack of physical activity. Further to this information, it also found these affect girls significantly more than it does boys, leading to the conclusion that there needs to be more of a discussion around the ways we use social media. A great majority of members within these fan circles of young influencers are within the age range observed by these studies, and unsurprisingly, they're mostly girls. So according to the study, they're more likely to experience issues with their mental health based on their use of social media. However, it seems to be how they use social media that is overlooked by these studies, as they seem to look more at how frequently social media is used rather than what it is used for. A study from earlier this year suggests the reason why girls are more affected than boys is because of how they use social media. This study argues because girls are more prominent users of social media, they are subjected to a greater chance of experiencing cyberbullying. As well as this, it's also noted that stress with relationships is also a cause for girls to experience issues with their mental health. With the context of our investigation, there are unnerving correlations between the results from the academic texts and the experiences of the group of people who we will be discussing. The way these young people use social media could be a trigger point for the degradation of their mental health, and the communities that they're a part of are, concerningly, very toxic and naive. Tea. It's what the online community thrives on at the moment. In the last year or so, the rise of tea culture has been very vocal and is an enjoyed pastime for many Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube users. There are accounts dedicated to the communication of drama or exposés of young influencers, and they themselves amass quite a following. Likewise, this is similar to stan accounts, which are dedicated to posting content solely about the influencer they idolize. Both are examples of how young girls are using social media, and both are very good examples of where this use could possibly affect the mental health of the users. If we take a look at how these accounts operate, it's clear they themselves are rather problematic, especially with the way they communicate. The tea accounts are ruthless in their methods and find every bit of dirt they can about the mishappenings of online personalities and influencers. Likewise, the stans are ruthless in protecting their idols, and this is where we see major internet clashes between the two groups. A good example of critic versus stan online is whenever you criticize BTS, you will get an army of angry stan accounts in your mentions. It's not advisable. But if we look at this smaller section of the online community, a lot of the findings correlate with how these people use their accounts. The users are very active in what they do, which could suggest that they spend a lot of time on social media, which could then lead to a lack of exercise as well as sleep. The conflict between users also leads towards the possibility of exposure to cyberbullying. However, there's nuance to this, and we need to identify genuine bullying from what could just be mere backlash. The relationships these young users have are also a factor we need to account for, as these are very social, yet also somewhat anonymous, and the way they make friends online is rather volatile. As they are at a crucial stage of their development, it's more than likely their mood will affect what they say and what they do, which can have a negative effect. More so, leading back to the idea of bullying. Alright, so it's time to crunch some numbers. In an attempt to understand the effects of social media on people who use it in general, I ran some polls on YouTube and Twitter to get a rough idea of how people within my community feel when they use social media. The first question I asked was, after using social media, I feel mentally drained, I feel unhappy, I feel demotivated. On Twitter, it was relatively balanced for the female respondents, and there was a majority towards no for males. However, the result for the people who don't identify as male or female was resoundingly different, with a 3/4 responding to no. Taking a look at the YouTube result, the male response was almost perfectly balanced, slightly favouring the no. However, the response from females favoured yes. What we can take from this is that there's a slight trend towards females being more affected by the use of social media. After this, I ran a second poll. When I experience negative attention online, I feel mentally drained and it depresses my mood. Unfortunately, the second poll didn't receive as many respondents as I would have liked to, so I'll unfortunately leave it out for this. However, YouTube was a completely different story, and the results were very interesting. 43% of males said they felt depressed when experiencing negative attention online, compared to 57% who said they didn't, meaning there is a difference of 14%. However, for females, the results are drastically different. According to the poll, 74% of females said they felt depressed when they experienced the negative aspects of social media. That is nearly 3/4. Now, I must reiterate, these are not official results, nor are they to be taken as evidence. It's just an illustration of the general consensus based off these two statements. The consensus shows similar results to what the studies present, and of course, the general difference shown by the male and female genders. However, as you can see, negative experience on social media results in many people being mentally affected to the point that it changes their mood. My tests were uncontrolled, and they probably have an age range from about 12 through to people in their late 30s. The results I received show that it affects many people, and some expanded in the replies, giving further insight to their experiences. One thing I can take away from these responses is the idea of knowing when to step away from the screen, which is something requiring discipline and a certain level of maturity. From recent incidents on YouTube, as well as Instagram, there's a general lack of maturity observed from these fan groups of the influencers, showcased in how they respond to certain situations and their overall depth of rationality regarding certain issues. It's agreeable then to accept that there is definitely some issue with young people being very involved and unchecked online, and the only way this can really be resolved is through discussion. Therefore, the aspect we need to address is the role of the influencer in the mental health discussion for not only their fans but themselves. Mental health is a very big function of the way they live, and what they do can be mentally draining. It's not only the burnout that affects creators or influencers, it's the hidden pressures of being a public figure and the pressure of making sure that what they do will resonate with their audience. As well, it's also demanding when they receive backlash, and although it may be valid, it's still mentally draining when you're hit with the full force of public outrage. It's not an easy thing for anyone to deal with. In no capacity is someone expected to be able to face the full scope of the internet and be expected to naturally cope with it. It's something developed through experience and practice. It's with this notion then that these young influencers between the ages of 13 to 16 are the most vulnerable to these kinds of stresses because they haven't been able to develop a protection or countermeasures to the stress of being in the spotlight, which is why they are often problematic because they don't understand the implications of what they do and don't have that level of maturity to understand how their actions have consequences on other people as well as themselves. The critique of this would be that the parental figures of these teen influencers need to be more involved in their child life, not from a business point of view, but from an emotional and parental manner. This is not to stifle their content or their online presence, but be more advisory in what they say and do so they don't hurt others and even themselves. The parents need to parent, and it seems like this is lacking right now. Is it their fault? I wouldn't say it is entirely their fault, as they're dealing with completely uncharted territory. So what do they need to do? By observing the posts by T accounts, a lot of the issues surrounding these teen influencers are from their communication with other people, be it on live streams, DMs, and even comments. It's what they say is being picked up and exposed. The general problem is what they say about others or what they do that's deemed problematic, which results in an onslaught of negative attention. Do they deserve to be criticized for that? Well, as a commentary channel, I of course believe that people need to be held accountable for what they do, and especially if they're in such a position of power. But we also need to remember that they're still young, and instead of hounding them, we need to teach them what is acceptable from the public's point of view. This is where the parents need to become more present. They need to know what is going on so they can ensure these teens learn from their mistakes and not just resort to openly defending them. Without this guidance, they're going to continue doing the same things and cause more damage to themselves and others, because they will not truly learn from their mistakes if there is no direct real-world action. It raises the question of whether these influencers are even old enough to handle such a platform at their age, of which has such a powerful effect on the lives of thousands, if not millions of people who are of a similar age. There's definitely a period we're in right now online where the nature of cancel culture is very serious and very aggressive. There's a certain toxic nature as well that really drives the response to certain situations. Like, there's people who really want to see others be dragged through the dirt, and that's not really healthy. There's a serious lack of empathy shown by all parties, whether it be the influencers or the spectators. It's just a really awful period for internet culture. In early August, a young influencer aged just 15 years old became the center of public scrutiny after it was alleged a young fan had taken her life because of things that she had said. The cliche X is over party began, and so did the accusations and negative comments towards this young girl. Her actions and comments are deplorable, and they really should be educated about the potential of their platform. However, attributing the cause of death to an individual is reckless and inappropriate. Even more, it's worse to make accusations based on a lack of substantial evidence. And unfortunately, in this case, it was another cancellation based on part of the story. Out of consideration to the people involved, I will not disclose who they are. However, it was recently revealed the alleged death was manufactured for unknown reasons. This is again deplorable. However, it is a clear sign of the naivety and shit kids are getting up to online, which is why there needs to be some real education about doing things online you wouldn't do in person, and that needs to be implemented by the platforms themselves as well. Instagram asking whether you want to reply with something mean isn't going to help any of this, and there really needs to be a push towards helping people understand cause and effect before more damage is done. Through it all, the most important thing is that we understand how we are affected by the time we spend artificially interacting. We need to remember there are actual people behind the accounts that we scrutinize, and they also have human experiences. Likewise, it's important we further our discussions on mental health and offer the support to people when they need it. Reflecting on ourselves will allow us to understand why people do the things they do, and also how they may react to the things we say. But at the end of the day, we're all human. It's very important we understand someone's situation before we make an accredited assumption on their character, and we don't simply brand them as being weak or seeking attention. Instead, we want to work towards removing that stigma from mental health discourse. There are many organizations in many different countries that are working to find ways to not only spread awareness, remove the stigma, but also in ways of preventing the worst case scenarios. It's no lie, there is a serious issue with the amount of people being affected because of the lack of awareness surrounding the symptoms and signs of serious mental illnesses. And even further, the rates of which people, especially young people, take their lives are rising year on end. It's within our human interest to ensure that something happens about this. Personally, I cannot relate to people who have been affected by serious mental health problems, but I do know many people who have and are still affected, and I think it's important we talk about these things, rather than pulling a veil over it and treating it as taboo. Likewise, I think we need to understand more about mental health and ways in which we can help others improve their well-being. It's also important we support the non-profit organizations, the researchers, and everyone involved in trying to educate people about mental health. I know many people in my community, as well as some people very close to me, have experienced problems with their mental well-being, and I'd like to make it known, this is for you. I have chosen 3 charities in 3 different countries that help raise awareness and offer support for those in need, that we will be raising monetary support for. In the US, I have chosen Mental Health America. In the UK, I have chosen Young Minds, and in Australia, where I live, Beyond Blue. I'm setting a goal of $1,000 for each organization, and I urge everyone who's able to donate just $1 to each organization. Together, with the combined effort of all of my subscribers, we can raise a fair sum towards these good causes. If you want to donate to only one of these, or even choose your own, fair enough. Anything is better than nothing.
They say, who cares if one more light goes out in the sky of a million stars? It flickers, flickers. Who cares when someone's time runs out? If a moment is all we are, or quicker, quicker. Who cares if one more light goes out? Well, I do. One more light goes out in the sky of a million stars. It flickers, flickers. Who cares when someone's time runs out? If a moment is all we are.